everybody, and welcome to the Macmillan Education Symposium event on M-Learning. I'm going to get everybody to introduce themselves first, and then we're going to get started. So let's just start with quick introductions.
My name is Agnes Kukulska-Hume. I'm a professor at the Open University, Milton Keynes, at the Institute for Educational Technology there. I'm also the current president of the International Association for Mobile Learning. Our students at the Open University are getting extremely interested in mobile learning, and so are the academics, and it's really happening now. We're seeing a big change in people's attitudes, I think largely fueled by the arrival of some very nice portable technologies such as the iPad and the iPhone, which have really excited people and have made them think, I think, seriously about how we use mobile learning. So I've been researching in this area for over 10 years now, and also have run a number of practical projects. I can say that mobile learning certainly works, but we have yet, at the same time, a long way to go.
I'm Jim Brady. I work in Annisland College, which is geographically pretty close. It's about 2 or 3 miles down the river. Our department is East London Higher. It's a big department with a variety of students, a smaller number of international students than before, many asylum seeker, refugee students, local ethnic minority students, and biggest slice of our population, East European migrants, probably people who are going to stay in Scotland or stay in the United Kingdom. We're not a department which is in any way at the cutting edge of these kind of developments. Like many FE colleges in Scotland, we've got a very shiny new building with good technology, with interactive whiteboards for all. Nevertheless, you'll still see the odd teacher wandering around with a cassette recorder. But when we moved to the new building, I tried to throw all of those out of windows, and I was restrained. So I wouldn't present us as experts, but we're pushing our teachers all the time. We're moving on well in VLE. One of my issues for today with my colleagues here in the chair is just to try and draw the line between mobile learning issues and related issues which cover e-learning and online learning in general. So I'd be happy that we come back to that one. I'm also the person who signs the orders for the technology and the resources. So I've got a great interest in making sure that the technology is used well, that we don't end up buying white elephants.
Hello, I'm Gillian Penny. I'm head teacher of a primary school, again not too far from here, a few miles along the river on the other side, Gavinburn Primary School in Old Kilpatrick. I'm also an National Distinguished Educator, which sounds a bit posh, but I have been involved quite a lot in educational technology across my career. At the school I work in at the moment, we are using mobile learning. We have a one-to-one iPad pilot on the go at the moment, which is part of a national Scottish pilot looking at the pedagogy that's around that type of learning, because learning doesn't happen because you give children a box or a machine to use. So we're exploring that. We've always used technology in quite a creative way in the school, and we're looking to see how we can enhance children's learning opportunities through the use of these technologies, not just through them, but by complementing the pedagogies and the methodology that we already have in school. So we'll quite often see children with an iPad and paper and pencil at the same time. We're not looking to throw out the old, we're looking to see how we can enhance. I'm very excited about the possibilities of how the technologies can now support learning, mobile or e-learning, and just where things are going, because children are learning a different way. I know from my own children, they have no patience now to wait for something. They'll just pop onto the iPad or the iPhone at home or the computer, look things up, go on their own sort of self-directed learning journeys as early as the age of 6 and 7 now. So as teachers, we have to embrace this and work out how best to move forward.
We see students doing dictionary work on mobiles all the time, so that seems a very straightforward one, and it seems unreasonable for teachers to ban smartphones. So that's the most obvious thing. We'll come back to one of your notions of porousness in a classroom later on, but when I've asked students whether they want to take that any further, I've got quite a firm answer recently from a number of students which says no, enough is enough. And going back to Nikki's distinction about in class versus out of class. Feedback I was receiving from students basically said, when we've got a teacher, we'd like to use him or her, thank you very much.
The perspective in primary school is quite different to yours. I was just thinking, how big an area is it in education? Depends who you're talking to at the time. In some of the spheres I kind of discussed this with, it's a huge issue. When I'll step into a head teachers meeting and it's not even thought of as anything. So I think it's coming, but within the I'm involved quite a lot within educational technology, so I hear about it a lot at the time. Our approach to it within schools is quite different to what Jim was speaking about there, because we tend to direct the use of it working with younger children, so it's not a case of if they've got a phone with them they can bring it out if they wish. We're building it into how we're working, and I think for it to be successful in schools we have to build it into the methodology and the pedagogy that's there. But I think it is a big issue and not a big issue at the same time.
I think that globally it's huge, and there are some projects which have got thousands of participants. I think, for example, of the English in Action project in Bangladesh, where teachers are being trained to deliver better English lessons, and other large-scale projects where, for example, Nokia and UNESCO have formed a partnership to enable all sorts of large-scale initiatives, for example, maths learning in South Africa. And often in these contexts, it's a matter of widening access and participation. So I agree with the point that's being made that where there is little access to resources, then mobile devices really facilitate that access.
All of you have used M-learning and mobile devices in one way or another. Can you tell us some practical uses or what you've done with students, with children?
In the school I work in, and I also support other schools when they're sort of moving forward to these kind of initiatives. We have a class at the moment who've all been issued with an iPad each. We actually have to issue this at the moment because we're not at a point where we are able to ask them to bring their own device. That is a discussion that's going on quite a lot at the moment about bring your own device frameworks to school. So the children now, for instance, in our primary 5-6 class all receive their iPad every morning and they have it there for the whole day. What has been really interesting for me is, coming from a school which used technology, I would say, very well, we'd always shared the devices before. And you know, when we're in some of the other classrooms, they're making their videos or compelling content, whatever they're doing, it's almost quite an energetic, slightly fraught feeling in the classroom. The one-to-one classroom is incredibly calm. It strikes me every day I go in, very calm, children are very engaged in their work, they're enjoying using it where it's appropriate. As one of the children said to me, it's great, you never have to share. Lovely. And that gave her more time to think, because she wasn't worrying about when she was going to get her turn on the device. So we're finding things about this kind of mobile learning that we weren't expecting. We expected the engagement, but the calmness I hadn't anticipated.
One sort of further development is enabling out-of-class practice and further work out of class. So one of the things that we've done for languages students at the Open Universities, developed an application that allows them to practice listening and speaking skills. And so they can do that at times that suit them throughout the day. And this really just complements other materials, or gives them an alternative way of practicing, something that they could also do by using a DVD-ROM or accessing the virtual learning environment. So I think facilitating out-of-class practice is definitely an area that has worked for us and I think has great potential. In a general way, I think what we're seeing more of is a combination of desk-based and mobile learning. So, for example, we have various social learning environments that the OU has developed, and now the next step really is to think about the mobile element. What can people do whilst they're out and about with their phones and other mobile devices that they can't do at their desk? So how does the mobile technology extend what they're doing either at their desk at home or in a classroom.
It's something we're wanting to explore quite soon. We'll be able to allow children to take the devices home for the out-of-classroom learning, but also from the sharing of learning with parents. Actually, they'll take home what they've been doing and bring back the next day, so that the classroom kind of flips slightly, I suppose would be the term, but you get the spilling from home to school and sort of sharing. So that's something we're very excited about. There's a few hurdles in letting them take these home. We're almost over those, but that idea that they continue to practice or go home with something they've done and show it to mum and dad, keep the energy of the learning going, and I think for young children that's really important. Within the kind of structure within our school at the moment, the use of the mobile phone isn't as when we work as well as what we're trying to do, because we're able to kind of structure more carefully, but we are dealing with quite a young age group. I think the ambition long term would be for children to be able to bring any device in and be able to access learning via that, but at the moment as we build the methodology and build the learning around it, I think having a directed device or device that you said, I want everyone to have such and such, is easier for us, certainly in the primary school at the moment, but by college that could be quite a different environment.
Yeah, I mean, I hope this isn't too obvious an answer, but a good teacher has got a good relationship ought to open that up, I think, on the basis of trust. If a class is somewhat more challenging or give me another euphemism, difficult, less well motivated, then you might have to look at an argument for saying, well, this just doesn't work, and bring phones out at given time. So I think institutions are going to have to make their own way, but in general, I think it's something that you can't resist in English language. I repeat that answer ever, simply because the dictionary function is so helpful for students to instantly clarify things.
Because the reason they've been banned is not because whether they fit or not with the curriculum, but it's mainly
Because
what they might do with them.
To deliver the BME on a mobile device is very different from designing for mobile learning. These are very different things. Both have their place, I believe, but they are very different. So some of these large companies, I think they're doing a great thing in raising the profile of mobile learning, but you know, sometimes it's very content-driven, and whilst I would say that's good in many ways, it still isn't the sort of the totality. It doesn't exploit the totality, the potential of mobile learning, which is to design new kinds of activities that enable more situated learning, more authentic learning, more informal, more personal. And these are challenges for teachers to think around, you know, what's new about the learner being out in the field with their device, more empowered to do things like collect data, to share whilst they're out and about, and so forth. So new designs, I think, for learning, rather than sitting back and thinking someone else will take care of how the good content has been delivered to more people.
I think the kind of support we actually need in learning is supporting us looking at how it's going to work, and the frameworks, not just pushing. I refer to the shiny box syndrome, where somebody thinks if I just buy 200 of these, the school will be fantastic and all our problems will be over. The support we need is not about pushing the devices at us, but supporting us in finding the frameworks that make these enhance and complement the present learning. For me, the difference between sort of Class 8 and the bring your own, if you wanted the right to bring your own, whatever device we've chosen, is the personalisation, the ownership of the device. Where we've used class sets before, they get them out for a period of time, they're removed, given to another class, so children don't build up the ownership, start tailoring the learning. We can't put on specific tools or apps to support different learners, etc. So I find the idea of the individual device, which can only be achieved eventually through some form of bring your own device model, allows for this personalisation, which I think will allow for the spilling home learning, that kind of stuff. Though we use the class set model as well, because we've only got so many options at the moment, but for us, for the bring your own to work at the moment, it has to be bring your own specific device, not bring any device to school.
I think ownership is incredibly important. It allows people to take the device from one context into another, so therefore to connect their experiences in different settings. Also to use the device over a period of time, so there's that aspect of becoming a lifelong learner, where the device is part of
students, and I think the important thing is everybody's got to make a decision about whether they want to make their own content or not. In the past, I've wanted to capture good things that go on in a classroom and somehow make it accessible. I'm going off that idea now because there's so much of it out there now, so number one, I wouldn't be looking to create my own content.
I think if I had to just recommend one thing, it would be to enable learners to use the mobile technology to capture their problems and their needs out in the field when they're actually using the language and communicating, trying out what they know, using the facilities that they have to record in that moment or soon after what it is that they actually wanted and needed. I think that could make a tremendous difference.
I think for me, I'll come back to Jim's first point of relevance for the children and coherence for your students. It's one thing we've had to kind of caution against, not so much within language but across the whole of learning, is that the activities you choose to do and the frameworks that you put on the device, are they going to support learning? Thinking about learning and teaching the whole time, not just because that particular app or facility is really cool. And it goes down well with the children sometimes, but getting that relevance and still coming back to the sort of core values of sort of learning and teaching. I expect there will be times where children misbehave and do something wrong with the devices, and I would count that in the same way that we handle other classroom discipline issues. So for all our children, for instance, the parents are signing an acceptable use policy, things that will and won't happen on the device, and if they're caught doing something, they will be punished in the way that they might be punished in school.
My serious answer to this is I've seen, I've been part of one particularly bad bullying incident which was social network based, but it didn't happen in the classroom, it happened in the lunch break. I think we'd all felt more badly about it if it had happened in class, but you can't control what they do in tea breaks and lunch breaks for one thing, and it's their own technology. So this particularly nasty incident, which I'm referring to, was way beyond our control. We could only deal with the consequences of it. I think how did it, or why did it not happen in the classroom? Because again, there's a reasonable relationship between the teacher and the students. If you've not got that, then you need to fall back on acceptable use policies and disciplinary procedures, and we've got all those. Your description of your own setting doesn't sound too far away from mine, but I'm not sure I see that there's any difference whether they roll on or roll off, or they come for shorter or longer periods. I think the underlying principles of using e-learning and mobiles are much the same. You could even turn it around. It might be more important in a shorter, more concentrated period to try and take advantage of the fact that they're all on smartphones, or they can bring tablets, or you can give out tablets.
I think it would need to be built into, it's obviously an experience which I wouldn't have in primary school, but it needs to be built into your learning experiences, that the use of these smartphones or mobile learning was enhancing the learning. I think that would have to be, is it making it better? So therefore giving a better course, I think it has to come down to the context of the learning. People will come in with different expectations. We have that in school, with the teachers have different expectations of what a good lesson would look like, and why on earth would you use technology for that. So I think it's ensuring that the learning activities are enhanced by the use of technology. We've been exploring not so much the mobile learning, but we use quite a lot of Edmodo and things like that, sort of for the children to access learning outside school. And that was a discussion which the teachers involved in that had with me. They actually chose to use this platform. It wasn't something I had suggested to them, but they found themselves getting sucked into lots of conversations and lots of things with children outside school hours, and realised that they were increasing their teaching time perhaps, though they did find it a positive. I think it's going to be down to sort of, almost, it sounds terrible, but a case by case. So I think some teachers find that continued interaction with the students benefits the next day at school, etc. I think it's going to be managed. It's going to be reasonable. You can't expect teachers to be available at all times. I know some places that will set up rotas of people available for homework questioning. I suppose that's similar to a supported study type activity or things, but it is something that, if we're encouraging students to be active the whole time, they may be looking for more input from their teachers, and I think that has to be sort of managed at school or institution level to a certain extent. The 24/7 maybe had to be thought of quite cleverly there, but it's not necessarily access to a teacher.
Yeah, that's right. I think the opportunities there are to develop more collaborative learning scenarios where the learners get on with something in between more formal sessions, and that they have other ways of coping with the need to have an answer to a question by a teacher. So yeah, I think we've been doing online learning for over 10 years, and that issue has arisen many times and is controlled by teachers setting expectations of how often they can be contacted and when. Mobile learning can potentially make that worse, but I think it's all in the design of the activity.
If I had brought this into my entire school at once, oh yes, there would be quite a lot of negative attitudes. So at the moment we're working with a number of teachers who are quite keen to be involved. They've been receiving training from myself, but they also receive some professional development training, which is, they were at a day on Friday where they gathered together with teachers from other schools to do the same type of thing. There's been quite a lot of technical support brought in, because you're suddenly managing 25 iPads, all the other apps, how do we back up, how do we transfer work between the iPad and the teacher, so that kind of support's come in as well, in order for us to be able to move forward with a model that works. My next phase would be to take on some of my sceptical teachers and bring them into the project, bringing people who once were against, who become for, become great advocates for the learning.